I spent hours and hours over the past 2 days delving into a series of videos that impact AI, AGI, and bots of all kinds, including humanoids and AI and eventually AGI powered bots. That's the future that we're looking forward to. This episode is about my effort to sift through those videos and do some 30,000 foot analysis of what it means generally and what it means for Tesla, what it means for you, and what it means for me. I hope you're going to enjoy this video. Please comment on the video. There's a lot of meat here, a lot of stuff that'll be fun to comment on. And I'm really interested in having you stay throughout the video because it builds and builds and builds. And I think you're going to find it extremely, extremely interesting. Not because I'm doing it, really, it's because of who I'm relying on in terms of coming up with the ideas that are in this particular video. Now, if you're interested in replicating that YouTube journey that I just took, it included the most recent all-in broadcast, the all-in gang, and that's made up of experts in VC investing, AI, gaming, graphics, and the best known member on that panel is, of course, Chamath Palihapitiya. I then took in an outstanding YouTube video done by Dr. Know-It-All on his channel, Professor John Gibbs, the guy that helped write the Elon Musk mission. Have you purchased your copy? Anyway, he has a huge background in computer graphics and AI. And now, of course, he's combined that into robotics as we've developed into the whole Tesla world of robotics. And anyway, next was an interview by Lex Friedman, MIT grad, professor, robotics expert in his own right. And he met with and interviewed Mark Raybert, I think it's Raybert, founder of Boston Dynamics, and maybe the most important overall contributor to the field of robotics in the last 50 years. So what do you think? Those sound like three pretty interesting videos to watch back to back and come up with some conclusions. All right. I will put links to all three videos in the description. I will also put cards up at the end, not now, but at the end. All right. First and foremost is the impact. The impact. Let's start with AI. Okay. It is clear to me, probably to you, and certainly it's clear to a lot of other folks, that AI has arrived in a way that is going to impact every one of our lives immediately, in much the same way as television did, as email did, as the internet did, and of course the smartphone on top of all of those, probably more than any other single thing. Maybe the AI thing is going to impact us even more. I'm not even talking robotics yet. I'm looking at AI. So AI alone probably will impact us more than even the smartphone did. OpenAI has wowed us again and again, and they are now wowing us over the last 24 hours with something called Sora. And what I want to do right now is I want to show you a little bit of. Well, here we go. This is Sora. Now, this is 100% AI created. These are not real dogs. These are dogs that have been accumulated from content, but tons and tons of data. Watch how realistic this is. It is mind-blowing. I'm not sure how far I can go with this before it will have some copyright problems. I noticed yesterday that Dr. John Gibbs ran into some copyright problems. So I'm only going to do this for a few more minutes, but when you look at the intensity of what we're seeing here, look at the detail that we're looking at. Look at this is like weird little raccoons running around. I mean, you can just say something into the computer. You verbally tell the computer what it is that you want to see, just like you are doing with DALL-E, just like you're doing with ChatGPT. And out of that, you get the result that you're looking at there. You get a physical manifestation. You get a video, a 30-minute video. The all-in panel was just as amazed as you can possibly imagine. They were just blown away by what they had witnessed in terms of this new product, this new Sora. It was palpable in the way that they spoke. You could just feel the intensity of what they had experienced and what they could think about in terms of what the future might be as a result of this. What blew the minds of the panel, however, the most was that this new tool takes a textual description of an idea of a scene and then renders us up to a 60-second movie in the amazing detail that you just saw that includes the sophisticated ability to get the physics right. And it does it rapidly. It does it quickly, just like DALL-E, just like ChatGPT. All of this arrives in this particular case at studio level production quality using who knows? Actually, those guys are sitting around going, I don't even know how they did it. Now, until yesterday, such an endeavor would have taken thousands of hours of human activity combined with massive amounts of compute to get the job done. But this was rendered in moments. And this is just version 1. Now, the panel went on to describe a program that writes code. This is separate from what we just saw. This is a program they're talking about that writes code. Well, there's lots of programs right now that are writing code and putting coders out of business. But this particular program does code in such a way it takes into consideration your style of writing code, your methods of writing code, and it makes the new code based on your style. Then they described another program that does the final checking of code. You know, you get all the code done and it looks like it's working and you've used it in use cases and everything looks fine, but sometimes there are still problems in the code. For instance, this folks at Boeing would have loved to have had a better analysis of the code. Maybe that 737 wouldn't have been such a problem for them. But everybody has these fix-it tools at the end that you can apply, but eventually you need humans to really go through and make sure there's no errors. Well, this is an app now that goes through and does a better job than humans of doing that final fix-it job. This is the kind of stuff that we're beginning to see in AI. This is the kind of stuff that will maybe blow your mind too if you watch these videos. Anyway, then John Gibbs went on to talk about the conversion of transformers and diffusion models. And that seems to be the method by which we're getting to the speed of compute that we are going to need if we're going to see FSD and Optimus be successful. It's likely, nobody knows for sure. Well, nobody knows. Those of us on the outside don't know for sure exactly what's happening with Tesla's FSD or what they're going to do with Optimus using the FSD chip. But what we do know, what we can imply from everything that we've heard, and again, Dr. Know-It-All John has done a tremendous number of videos talking to experts about this, is that this seems to be what's going on, this convergence of transformers and diffusion. That will allow us to take an Optimus bot or the car and be able to work in a complex space that makes decisions fast enough, given the scope of complexity, that they will safely do some kind of useful work. Anyway, you can imagine that the capability to do this, to be able, in the case of FSD, to bring 8 cameras worth of vision into the computer and then cause it to be able to spit out an action, it takes an amazing amount of data compilation, storage, and compute. And it means massive data centers filled with CPUs. This is one of the ways that fortunes are already being made, obviously with NVIDIA and others. But you know what? Only a few gold miners made money in the gold rush, while most of them lost everything. It was the merchants and the tool providers and the hotels and the bars. Those are the folks that made money hand over fist when it came to the gold rush and with regard to so many of these other things. I am making money right now because of YouTube, and YouTube is only possible really because of laptops and personal computers and these kind of guys. So there's millions and millions of ways that AI is now going to generate all kinds of new business opportunities, all kinds of new ways that are going to make our lives better, all kinds of ways that are going to make us wealthier. And that means there's opportunities for you and for me. Now, marry the AI revolution to the bot. It doesn't even have to be humanoid. It doesn't even have to have legs. It doesn't have to have, it can be stationary. It just needs to have vision or other sensors that will allow it to use those sensory perceptions in order to do useful work that it couldn't do before. So it might be stationary, it might move on a track, it might be on wheels. Well, Boston Dynamics has a pretty decent business right now selling bots that are like dogs, so they're four-legged quadrupeds. Their humanoid robot isn't making them any money at all yet. But I think what we'll see in the next little while is that humanoid robots will be at the top of the heap, because guess what? Turns out God was right. Humans are at the top of the heap, and for good reason. Therefore, if we humans can make a machine that actually closely replicates human movement, especially of fingers, hands, arms, legs, and feet, and that can sense the world and then respond to it in human-like ways, there might be a serious amount of business to be had. As Elon says, you know, the largest economy in the world is the labor economy. If you start to replace that labor economy, and we're not just talking about the labor to make something in a factory or the labor to build a home or do whatever. We're talking about the labor to iron your clothes and all the kinds of things that you're hoping that it'll be able to do in the future. Anyway, in fact, Elon Musk, Brett, Chapath, Warren, Dr. John, Scott, Cern, and Randy, for starters, all agree that the TAM for just the humanoid version of future robots is in the billions. Moreover, those that on that list would also agree that the value of these bots would be in dollars per unit of time, or so much per hour, so much per day, or so much per month. Now, most of the folks that I know have done the math, and I think I've seen pretty much everybody on YouTube or on X that has done the math around the humanoid bots, feel that there's a minimum of $6,000 a month worth of value there. And it's pretty interesting because people coming from all different directions have come up with about the same number. And it could be many multiples of that. Cern Basher and I have both made cases. I did a long video on this. He's done a video on this, where we believe it's really probably about double. Okay, you take the cost of the worker, let's say $20 an hour, you add that 35% for just the normal stuff like Social Security and other kinds of things that you have to pay that worker. And you come up, let's say, with $27 an hour, that's $54,000 a year. And normally, in the beginning, when I first did my analysis and when Cern did his analysis, we just made that times four for four shifts. So you take that 50-something thousand dollars a year, you multiply times four, you get $200,000 a year worth of value. But then Cern and I did a long video on this. We said, you know what, there's a huge amount of additional savings in terms of hiring, firing, training, motivation, HR, supervisors, and you just go, being able to put them on second and third shift, and they're not going to steal anything. They don't disrupt employees with arguments and fights. And we made a huge long list, and we decided it's probably double that. So now you have a $20 an hour person that is replaced. So you replace four of these $20 an hour employees, you could pay $400,000 a year for that bot, okay? But you know what? I'm just going to stick with my $72,000 a year case. And if you take 1,000 of those robots and you deploy them, 100,000 of those robots and deploy them, which would be a really, really small number. And let's say that Tesla does that by 2026, you deploy those 100,000 robots, it might be 1,000 this year and 10,000 next year and 90,000 in 2026 or whatever. You get to 100,000 and you're charging, $72,000 a year for those. That would be, and I'm saying profit. It'd be $7.2 billion in revenue and at least $5 billion in profit. And I think it'll actually be more than that. I think it'll really be, it's all pulling numbers out of the air anyway. In the very beginning, you might just go ahead and charge $200,000 a year, until you run out of people that are willing to pay that. And then maybe you charge $100,000 a year and then you charge $72,000 anyway. But if you add a zero onto just what I just said, that would be $50 billion a year in profit. Now, getting to 1 million robots deployed, well, it sounds like a lot, but is it? I mean, come on. Tesla makes 2 million cars a year. So we're not talking about per year here, we're talking about deployed. So if I do the 1,000 this year and 10,000 next year and 100,000 the next year, and then I do 900,000 the next year, now I've got $1 million deployed, and that's a $50 billion profit. Well, okay, so what about if I want to add another zero? Well, Toyota makes 10 million cars per year. Okay, so if Tesla and or somebody else, who knows, but let's just call it Tesla, if the next couple of years they deploy another 4 million each, and we're getting close to 10 million. So by 2028, maybe they have 10 million deployed. Maybe they have a lot more than that, but let's just say 10 million. Now you're looking at a crazy number. You're looking at 500 billion, 500 billion, $500 billion in profit. That's 10 times Apple. Apple's worth what? $3 trillion. 10 times 3 trillion is $30 trillion. Now, I know we get into these crazy large numbers, and people say in the comments, they're like, Randy, this is, bots are never going to work. They're never going to be able to do useful work. Nobody's going to want them in their factories. Well, a whole bunch of really smart people, all of the Mag 7, are very, very interested in bots. And this is what I keep saying. It's not going to be the small players. Yeah, there's going to be opportunities for people that only invest 50 billion or $100 billion. I'm sorry, 50 million or $100 million. The zeros are so complicated. But, Figure has only invested about $100 million, and they are a player. Okay, some of these other companies have even invested less. So it is possible to be a player at relatively easy to attain numbers. And there will probably be some people that do it in their garage and get it to the place where they can get bought out for some serious money. So it's not going to be all about the big players, but trust me, these big players have their eyes on all of the guys that you're already seeing, the 1Xs and the Figures, and just go down the line, and they're looking at these guys and they're deciding, should we invest? Do we just buy them out? Do we just want to buy the talent? How are we going to, be a part of this? Well, let's go on to the Lex Fridman interview. So Lex Fridman, of course, interviewed Mark Rabert of Boston Dynamics. It was super interesting, particularly in providing a history of bot development over the last 50 years, and knowing how the bots have developed and what's had to be done in order to get it from the first pogo stick bot to the four-legged bot to now the two-legged, et cetera, et cetera. It's very, very helpful in understanding where we are today. Now, he happens to believe that Optimus is still behind Boston Dynamics. And I find that a little weird. I look at Boston Dynamics as being almost 100% hard-coded. I look at it as not being lightweight. I look at it as not being something that's easy to manufacture. I look at it as being expensive, and I wonder how he's coming to that conclusion. However, that's his opinion. It's okay. Number two, he says he's visited Figure and some of the other factories, and he had nice things to say about Figure. And he feels that several of them are on a good path. So it's hard to know because we're all looking at videos. You may have heard my visit with Warren Redlick this morning, and Warren is a little bit nervous that some of these people are just putting up stuff that maybe it's not real, maybe it's not really that capable in order to raise money. And he could be absolutely right. So obviously be careful if you're being hit up for investments in some of these companies, which I know there's a lot of that's going around right now. There are people that these companies are almost all looking for investments because they don't have the cash, they don't have the ability to go to the next level. They can't manufacture, they can't even buy the compute that they need without a lot more money. At some point, we're not talking 50 or 100 million. At some point, you're talking billions and billions. Anyway. So it turns out that Mark has left his post at Boston Dynamics, and he's now pursuing the AI side of things. And he does believe that we are on the verge of doing some amazing things. He talks, as everybody is right now, he talks a lot about the physics. He says they are every single person in all these videos I watched all look back at the entire game industry and how the graphics developments that took place in the gaming industry were necessary for they needed to get the animation right. The animation had to look real. And the key was that they had to do in 2D the movements that were three-dimensional like. And the key to accomplishing this in regular settings was that they had to have the physics right. And that was very, very hard. And they had to create these physics engines. I didn't know anything about this until just the last few weeks. So these physics engines, but the physics engines hugely complex and sophisticated. And yet we've just seen what's happening on this new product, where apparently it doesn't cost as much anymore to do those physics engines. Anyway, so being able to accomplish this in the way that that OpenAI is now in those videos we just watched is crazy. And again, we'll provide you with access to those videos. Anyway, so as with many things in life, the real question at this point for you and for me, okay, we're not running Tesla, we're not even probably working for Tesla, except maybe, I'm making a living off of Tesla by doing what I do. But the real question right now, I think, is how does this affect your profession or your next profession? I mean, who knew that I would be starting a new profession at 74? Maybe you've got another profession that's coming up for you. How will it affect you if you're looking to start a new business, or maybe improve your existing business, or possibly just as an investor, as we just talked about? What do you believe about AI and about bots and about how all of this is going to impact your life and the economy and the society and all those kinds of things? So anyway, if you believe it's game changing, and at the level at least, and probably bigger game changer than smartphones, then it might mean you should be taking some kind of action about your career, your investments, etc. Having the belief and the knowledge about everything that's taking place is obviously of no value if you don't act on it. So let me lay out 10. These are not 10. It turns out it was not 10. Turns out I'm going to lay out 6. I'm going to lay out 6 propositions for you as possible ways to think about what all this is that I just watched, etc. And maybe this will be helpful to you. Maybe it won't. Anyway, let's just talk about it. Number 1, billions of jobs are going to go away in the next 25 years. Billions in the next 25 years. It will take 5 to 10 years to have a significant impact, because it'll be 5 to 10 years before we're talking about hundreds of millions of bots. And then a lot of those will be doing things that humans don't want to do anyway, or they'll be doing things that humans never have done because you couldn't do it until you had free labor or almost free labor. And then but the eventual impact will be huge. But you know what? I keep saying this over and over again. So was the impact of the Industrial Revolution, which wiped out 90% of the jobs that existed prior to the change. That 90% was farmers. Okay. And they went from 90% of the population doing farm work to 5% of the population doing farm work. It might also cause some societal shifts, and some of those might be painful. But on the whole, I think we'll be fine. In fact, even good. Number 2, billions of new jobs will be created and made possible by these tools. Figuring out what those jobs might look like is where the opportunity lies. I did a video on that, a long video on that, and I suggested such things as vacation, recreation, experience, and games, sports will be bigger than ever in years in the future. All of those things will become a bigger deal. You will not just have a professional league, like, professional baseball league, and then a semi-pro league, which semi-pro leagues are now getting much more and more activity, much more financially secure. You'll now have a semi-professional league as well. And it'll be, $5 to go watch it, and it'll be down the street. I mean, this is my thinking about what the future is going to look like. But there will also be lots and lots of jobs like what I do now as an influencer. It's going to be huge, major amounts of activity in that area. So, okay, let your mind go and think about what else will be important in that world, and what will ownership of robots, ownership of cars, etc., and then putting them out for lease or rent, or etc., or even buying and selling, repairing, etc. All right, number 3, the world will be wealthier by a lot. This will definitely lift many out of poverty, just as the Industrial Revolution did, and just as the information revolution has done. You've heard me say it before. If you watch this channel, you may have heard others say it. most people don't recognize the fact that there is a very, very small number of people in the world that will go hungry tonight. It is it's infinitesimal how many people will go to bed hungry tonight. And those are mostly people that are living under dictatorships where the dictator is the one that's determining how much people get to eat, or purposefully trying to keep them from getting all that they need to eat. So in the US, we will see that this improvement, if we look at the US today as the wealthiest place on the planet, as where nobody goes to bed hungry unless they're an idiot and they're living on the streets. Even if they're living on the streets, there's plenty of places to go get a meal. So you can have all this wealth, and it doesn't mean that you have any smarter folk. Well, smarter, wiser. You don't have wisdom, doesn't necessarily go along with wealth. And folks that are perfectly capable of making a positive contribution to the world around them and making choices that are they are making choices that are destructive to themselves, to their families, to their communities. How can the center of the information revolution, San Francisco, now be the poster child for an American culture in decline? You have to ask yourself that. Number 4, Tesla will be the big winner on this new stage. No other company has the combination of robot talent, AI talent, compute, manufacturing skills, return on investment ability, cash, the ability to raise more cash, brand identity, understanding of consumers, data, the new oil, and Elon Musk at the helm. Nobody has anything close to that combination of capabilities. And if you have one or two of those, you're going to be at a tremendous disadvantage to the assets of Tesla. So I think Tesla becomes the big winner. Of course, you probably already believe that, but maybe you don't. But that's what I believe. Number 5, there are dangers in all of the above, just as there were and are dangers in the internet or smartphones. Those dangers may be greater than those that we've already overcome because, we've got the danger of the smartphone and we've figured out how to deal with those dangers. As John Gibbs said, though, right now we're talking about AI as a tool, but whether or not AI ever has the ability to actually think, it doesn't matter if it can actually think, but it may be so fast that it appears to think. And what will be the difference? If we think it can think, then it will be seen as having agency. And if it has agency, that can bring huge problems with it. On the other hand, Mark Raybert, he asks Friedman, he says, hey, Lex, are there people around you that are actually smarter than you? And of course, that's a pretty big jump. But anyway, Lex agreed that there are people around him that are smarter than him. Well, then Mark wondered, does Lex feel threatened by those people that are smarter than him? Lex said no. Now, what was left unsaid was that those smart folks also have agency. And yet we let them run our governments and they tell us what we need to do to make a living, our bosses and whatnot. Now, if those agents have evil intent and act to do that evil intent, does it matter whether it's a robot or a human? Plenty of humans have and are currently immoral, unethical, evil, and they're massively killing, maiming, and torturing other humans right now in the Ukraine, etc. Well, that gives you a bit of science, a bit of economics, a bit of philosophy, a bit of technology. I hope it's been helpful. And if it has, please hit the like button and then comment. I really want to hear from you about this particular video. Now, here are those cards for the 3 videos that underpin this episode. And I do, of course, recommend all 3 very highly. I also did a video earlier today with Warren Redlick on the bots and on competition. And I can only put up 3 cards, but it's easy enough for you to find that video with Warren. Just go up into the channel and look at the videos, and it'll be the very first one on there. Anyway, it's easy enough to find. So like, subscribe, notify, all that kind of good stuff. Buy some Cybertruck bottle openers and support the channel, if you would, on Patreon. All that information, everything, including, did you know that I also put up a list of all the programs that are coming up? Pretty much. I mean, sometimes it changes because things change, but I don't know if you can go down there and look and you can see what programs are coming up in the future. You can also see almost everybody, all the guests that I have on the channel, their information, how to find them on X, how to find their video channels, etc. Okay, that's all I got right now. It has been great talking to you.